the Emerging Threats and Capabilities Subcommittee of the House Armed Services Committee to order. I am pleased to welcome everyone here today for this hearing on the fiscal year 2017 budget request for information technology and cyber programs. Lately, the Secretary has been highlighting the need for increased innovation in the Department of Defense through public-private partnerships, and I was grateful that Secretary Ashton Carter was here yesterday on this issue, so it's right on point, as well as the importance of generating new capabilities to offset growing advantages of future potential adversaries. I believe that information technology and cyber will both serve as key enablers and at the same time present key challenges for the Department as it tries to realize its vision. In this time of fiscal constraint, I also believe it is equally important to enforce management rigor to make sure that we are squeezing the most out of every defense dollar. Where it makes sense, we need to learn from industry and use the kinds of business analytics and business intelligence methods that work so well in the commercial sphere. That also means using commercial tools to the maximum extent, especially in areas like business systems and cloud computing. We need to find better ways to foster and maintain our own human capital to support the acquisition and management of information technology and cyber systems. In looking through this most recent budget request, I want to make sure the Department is emphasizing these two complementary tracks, increased innovation as well as increased management discipline. I would like to welcome our distinguished panel of witnesses and appreciate their perspectives on all of these issues. This panel includes the Honorable Terry Halvorsen, Chief Information Officer, Department of Defense, the Honorable Peter Levine, the Deputy Chief Management Officer, Department of Defense. I'd like now to turn to my friend and ranking member, Mr. Jim Langevin from Rhode Island, for any comments he'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for convening this hearing, and I want to thank you to our witnesses for testifying today on the President's fiscal year 2017 budget request for information technology and cyber programs. Last week, we heard about the Cyber Mission Force build and operations from Admiral Rogers, and today we'll hear about the infrastructure our warfighters operate within and defend for the enterprise. Cyber Command has advocated for the ability to see the network in order to provide better defense. The Joint Information Environment, or JIE, is the guiding effort for achieving this capability, and today I hope to hear about the progress made under the JIE umbrella, governance for this effort, and service contributions. Another major undertaking I'd like to discuss today is implementing the Department's cloud strategy. The DoD's migration to the cloud is slow due to laborious certification requirements and an acquisition system unable to keep up with cloud services procurement. This also seems to hinder any efficiency or cost savings that could otherwise be achieved. Finally, the DoD has been tasked with building and maintaining the IT system for OPM's new National Background Investigation Bureau. While it makes sense the Department provide expertise on building a secure system, I'm concerned the DoD is assuming all the risk by providing resources and assuming responsibility for decisions made outside the Department. As a longtime advocate for cybersecurity within this subcommittee, I'm glad we've taken the time to not only discuss the build and operations, but also the infrastructure our cyber warriors operate within every day over the last few weeks. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank our witnesses for being here today to discuss this important topic, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Langevin. And now, welcome again to our witnesses. Your written statements will be submitted for the record, so we ask that you summarize your comments in 5 minutes or less, and then after that, each of the persons on the subcommittee will go through a 5-minute process, and Kevin Gates will make sure it's done correctly. So we now begin with Mr. Halvorsen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify before the subcommittee today on the Department's information technology budget request. As the Department's CIO, I am the principal advisor to the Secretary of Defense for information management, IT, cybersecurity, communications, positioning, navigation, and timing, spectrum management, senior leadership, nuclear command control, and communications matters. Those latter responsibilities are clearly unique, to the DID. My imperative as the CIO in managing this broad and diverse set of functions is to ensure that the Department has the information and communications technology capabilities needed to support the broad set of Department missions. This includes supporting our deployed forces and cyber mission forces, as well as business and warfighting support functions. As Secretary Carter has stated, DoD must address strategic challenges across all domains, not just air, land, and sea, but increasingly in cyberspace. The Department's budget includes funding to address these challenges, including IT and cyber investments that are critical to the Department's warfighting, intelligence, and business missions. As the CIO, I am driving cultural, business, technical improvements, and innovation into DoD's IT and cyber to better support defense missions and operations. My written testimony provides more detailed information on the Department's IT and cyberspace budget and priorities. I want to emphasize that these efforts require teamwork and partnership within DoD, which includes DISA, USD, AT&L and Policy, U.S. Cybercom, DCNO, and other partners. External partnerships to DoD will also be critical to include Congress, industry, and our allies. I strongly believe an expanded partnership with industry will be essential to expanding and maintaining technological advantages while improving our fiscal accountability. I thank you for your interest and support, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Halvorsen. We now proceed to Mr. Levine.
Thank you, Chairman Wilson, Ranking Member Langevin, members of the subcommittee. I'm Peter Levine, and I'm the Deputy Chief Management Officer of the Department of Defense. 2 years ago, this committee enacted legislation which will merge the offices of the DCMO and CIO. However, that legislation does not take effect until the beginning of the next administration. So until that time, the CIO, Mr. Halvorsen, will remain the responsible official within OSD for IT, cybersecurity, and many of the other issues addressed in your letter of invitation. The DCMO's role, until such time as this merger takes place, is limited to reviewing and approving of investments in IT business systems. We do thank you in that regard for last year's NDAA, in which you substantially streamlined and gave us more flexibility in the way we do this. We intend to use this new flexibility in several ways. First, we intend to change our focus from the discrete review of each individual small investment and focus more on portfolios so we can be more forward-looking in our management of business systems. Second, we plan to focus much more on return on investment so that we can ensure that when we invest in business systems, we actually realize the benefits that we should be able to get out of them, that we actually turn off the legacy systems and reduce manning where we can develop more efficient and less manpower-intensive processes. And finally, we're going to work to develop a streamlined process for business systems where we can align our business systems investment process, our CIO process, and our acquisition process into a single process, so that we don't have to sequentially go through one after the other and put the program manager through recurring hoops as we go forward. We're firmly committed to working with you as we try to make the business systems process more efficient and to improve the Department's investment process, and look forward to your questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And we'll now proceed with a 5-minute round. I want to commend Lindsay Kavanaugh and Jim Langevin for achieving an extraordinary turnout today. So congratulations, you did good. And I'll begin with myself, and this is for both of you. What do you see as the major budgetary challenges in this year's President's budget request? Where are we accepting risk based on current budget constraints?
I'll give the general answer, which is not enough money, and I'll defer to Mr. Halvorsen as to the IT budget specifically.
I certainly echo Peter's first comment about not enough money. I think in the IT area, we're taking some risk in modernization. Some of it will slow. We're trying to balance that and make sure that we don't take that risk in the security side. The other, I think, challenge that we're going to have in IT may not be exactly in the budget, and it's going to be the retention of the IT workforce. And frankly, that's going to come down to an economic decision. I happened to be in the Valley last week, and Google announced they're raising the pay for cybersecurity by another 20%. that's going to keep impacting our ability to attract talent. If you ask me about the budget, what keeps me up more at night, that's probably the answer, sir.
And thank you very much. And Mr. Halvorsen, Chairman Mac Thornberry's most recent defense reform proposal emphasizes prototyping and experimentation. Can you tell us what the Department is doing in regard to information technology and cyber programs that highlight these approaches?
Yes, thank you. I think a couple things that we want to think about when we answer this question. Much of the innovation today being driven in the cyber and IT business is coming from the commercial sector. We want to be closer tied to the commercial sector. So thanks to some legislation last year, I am able to now put people from DOD inside of business, and we are doing that today, and also have business people on my staff, which we are also doing today. I think that partnership that we continue to strengthen is a key to us getting the right innovation and getting it on time. Within the DOD, I want to focus our S&T dollars around the areas the industry isn't going to focus on, and that's going to be on the weapons systems and top-level security systems where there is not yet much play in the commercial sector. And I think our budget reflects that that's where our emphasis is, and also reflects where we're taking risk is around innovation dollars that we would have that were inside the budget for commercial areas that we've taken some risk and are not spending that much.
And again, I am impressed with the efforts by Secretary Carter to work for public-private cooperation. Additionally, Mr. Halvorsen, in the FY17 budget request, the Defense Information Systems Agency, the primary IT provider for the department, eliminated the S&T funding it has to pursue innovation and technology demonstration. Please explain the rationale for that decision and how this aligns with the Secretary's emphasis on drawing in innovation from the commercial sector.
Yeah, we certainly reduced DIS's S&T funding. They still have some R&D money, but in the area we reduced it is aligned exactly, I think, what we've said before. Today, where we're going to get our information, and particularly true for most of DIS's activities, which are supporting our business functions, is from industry and commercial. So in a constrained budget, my opinion, that was where we chose to take some risk, because I think I can get that same innovation effect by strengthening our relationships with commercial industry.
Additionally, Mr. Halvorsen, Section 901 of the FY 2015 NDAA mandated that the Chief Information Officer begin to exercise authority, direction, and control over the Information Assurances Directorate of the National Security Agency. Recently, this subcommittee was made aware of a DoD proposal to place that authority, direction, and control back with the Undersecretary for Intelligence. Do you support the Department's proposal? What are the pros and cons of keeping that authority with the Chief Information Officer?
I don't know that the Department has made a formal proposal yet. I know that it's being discussed. Candidly, I would have some concerns about moving it away from the DoD CIO, but more importantly, what we are doing is working with the Intel Department to form a governance structure that will allow both the CIO and Intel equities in the IA money to be addressed.
Well, with your background, we would all appreciate any input at any time as we consider these issues. I now yield to Mr. Langevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I want to thank both of our witnesses for being here and what you're doing in the IT and cyber sphere. So one of the questions I had, and Terry, you talked about it just a minute ago in terms of, well, the private sector increasing what they're paying their cybersecurity folks, and it's going to be particularly challenging now for us to compete to get that top-end talent. I know in the NDAA last year, we gave more flexibility to the department to try to take advantage of that IT talent. You know, for example, allowing potentially, I envision it, to see private sector be able to detail for maybe a year or two these high-end individuals that, you know, it would be challenging for us to both afford, attract, and keep for a long period of time. But, you know, companies have an interest in patriotic duty and want to help secure the nation in cyberspace. So we made some progress in that with the NDAA, giving some flexibility to the department. Can you tell me, do you need additional authorities to further take advantage of that talent so that we have the cyber workforce that's as robust as possible and our networks are as secure and as robust as possible?
First, I would thank you for the NDA last year. That is helping some of the work we're able to do, the accepted workforce in cyber, being able to bring the people in from industry like we're doing now. I do think we will need some legislation that probably changes slightly the rule sets about what we're allowed to do with the industry people. I think exactly what you stated. We really want to be able to bring them in and have them sit in a position for a year, being able to execute some decisions within the department and then go back to industry. Just like I think there's a market space today for us to have some of our civilian employees go to industry, and industry would like to have them. And I think we'll need to tweak some of the legislation so that could happen more often. I think we share the vision, and in the end, we want more of an in and out, back and forth, and you could really see the career path in cyber IT changing so that it's not an all civilian or all government career path, but a much more combined career path, and I think that would serve the nation well.
Good. I mean, that's exactly where I hope that we are going to be, and that's what we want to get to. Please, I hope you'll work with us and tell us how we can be of help in terms of additional legislation or language that you need to get to that point. So as I mentioned in my opening statement, I find it appropriate the Department of Defense is involved in building a new IT system for OPM's new National Background Investigation Bureau that will house sensitive personnel information. However, I'm concerned that the DoD has been given guidance and deadlines that are not realistic and is assuming all responsibility for performance when the decision-making authority may be shared. So my questions are, can you describe the Department of Defense's role in building and maintaining a new IT system? Specifically, what is the amount requested for fiscal year 2017 as well as in the out years? Was additional money added to the top line for DIS's role in this effort, or is it coming out of Hyde? What other resources are being provided for this effort? Is the current workforce sufficient to meet the demand, or will additional personnel be billeted? Will the Department have sole decision-making authority in building and maintaining the system, or is it shared with OPM and other communities? And what timelines have been established for delivering the system? And Mr. Levin, if I could, Levine, I'm sorry, Levine, what role will you have in doing business process reengineering to change the way NBIB does business so it fits the IT system, not the other way around? And if you need me to repeat any part of that, I'll be glad to. Sorry, it's such a long list.
So, sir, what I'd like to do, because I do think that question deserves a lot of matter, is I'll make some comments on it, but I'd also like to take that for the record and get back to you with some of the specifics answers.
Fair enough.
For 17, it's $95 million. There was a top-line increase to DOD for doing some of this. We'll get you the exact numbers across the fit-up. I think I'd be foolish if I said there's not some concern on DOD's part about how this is going to work. And what I would assure you is, from a standpoint of the build, we're going to get the requirements from the group that's looking at how we're going to redo the whole investigation process. When I have those requirements, and that group starts next week, and we have membership on it, we will build a system that supports those requirements that also ensure security. If at any time I think that that's not happening, I will be the first to let you know. I am comfortable right now that we've worked out a governance process with OPM and OMB that makes DOD the decision maker for all of the technical decisions and the security decisions. But I am still concerned, and we'll have to see how that goes forward. And I'll get you more detail on the rest of the question.
I'd appreciate whatever additional detail you could provide, and rest assured we stand ready to support you in this effort as you make the transition. And Mr. Levine.
With regard to the business process reengineering, we definitely have less of a role in that than we would have if the entire mission had been transferred to the Department of Defense. However, it was never going to be entirely Department of Defense in any case, because, as you know, the DNI establishes security clearance policy. So we are always going to have to work with outside agencies and reconcile differences with outside agencies. We are undertaking with the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence to re-engineer the DoD part of the process. We're looking at continuous evaluation. We're looking at other measures to streamline our organization and streamline our part of the process. And we do still have significant pieces of the process. It's the investigation piece that OPM has, but not the entirety of the process. As we do that, we'll see places where we're going to want help. We're going to want changes in the OPM piece of the process, and we'll have to work that through the interagency because we don't control it, but we will work it through the interagency process.
Very good. Thank you. You get back.
Thank you, Mr. Langevin. We now proceed to Congressman Doug Lamborn of Colorado.
Thank you. And I'll get to the budget implications of this in just a minute, but how active are we in working with allies, NATO allies, Israel, et cetera, in combating cyber threats and cyber attacks?
Extremely active. A couple of the things that we have done that I can talk about in this forum, within the Five Eye community, we actually established last year a CIO Five Eye group that meets physically every 6 months, virtually every quarter. Our next meeting is in London, where cybersecurity is certainly one of the big topics. We've had visits to Israel, exchanging data. That continues. I just came back from Korea and Japan, where that was a major topic. I can tell you that the NATO partners, Korea, Japan, Germany, have all adopted the DoD cybersecurity scorecard as the basis for measuring how effective we're doing cybersecurity basics across the board, which I think is a big breakthrough. So we can probably give you some more detail, and we'll take that for the record, but they're the major things that we're doing to improve our information sharing.
Well, that's good to hear. And do you have any recommendations in the budget on maybe making that even stronger? Or, I mean, I know you have a good budget that you're defending right now, but do you see any room for improvement in that area in particular?
You know, I do see room for improvement, but I don't think right now it's a money issue for improvement. I think it's more of getting all of us aligned to the right principles and basics. Today, we've made good progress within NATO, and as I said, Japan and Korea and Germany. There's some other work we need to do with other partners. I will be in Estonia in June working some of that issues, and what I'd like to do is when I come back from that, I'll have a bigger sight picture, is maybe give you some more answers on what I think we might need to do to go beyond some of our traditional allies.
Okay, I appreciate that. Well, I'd like to follow up on this conversation at another time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Lamborn. We now proceed to Congressman Jim Cooper of Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, the Santa Claus question. Both of you mentioned that you would like to have more money. How much and for what?
I would say that as the DCMO, my responsibility is finding efficiencies. I'm not actually looking for more money. The department is looking for more money. I'm trying to identify efficiencies within the department where I can free up money so that we can invest more in the long-range science and technology programs and force structure and things that we need to keep our force ready and ready to go today and ready to go in the future. That's where I mean more money. I defer to Mr. Halvorsen as to specific IT investments.
I think to upgrade some of our legacy systems, and I can get back to you with a number on that, and to tie back with Peter, I think some investment in the legacy systems, and particularly some of the larger both HR personnel and pay systems, those investments would do two things for us. One, we would certainly improve security. There are some issues we need to fix there. Secondly, I think we could improve efficiency, and after we made those investments, I actually think the return on investment would be pretty good. But I will come back to you with a number, sir.
Thank you. Now the Scrooge question. The Pentagon is the least auditable of all government agencies. It's been a risk factor for the GAO for 20 years, the #1 risk factor. Will your IT work help the Pentagon get audited faster?
The answer is yes. Improved business systems, improved financial management systems definitely make an impact. We are much closer today to being auditable than we were 10 years ago. A significant part of that is because of the ERP investment, but there are many, many hurdles we have to get over that are not IT, and IT can't solve it by itself. We have policy issues that we've been kicking down the road 10 years that now that we're facing a 2017 deadline, we're finally getting people to be serious about and say, hey, yeah, we actually have to make those decisions. We have to figure out how we're going to go about that. The DCMO co-chairs the governance board, the fire governance board, which is responsible for trying to drive the department toward audit with the comptroller, with Mike McCord. And since I arrived at the department about 10 months ago, we've been trying to, we've set the department on a program of identifying what our key interim milestones are that we need to hit in order to become auditable. We've identified a lot of things that should have been addressed 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but we're trying to chip away at them one at a time. And we think that the deadline is extremely constructive in pushing us toward that objective. The department seems to have an infinite ability to kick things down the stream, and facing a deadline that's 2 years away really helps focus the attention.
Well, some people would say 2017 is next year, not 2 years away.
It's October 1, 2017. I guess a year and a half is what that is. Yes, sir.
Doesn't sound like you're very optimistic about meeting the deadline.
When I came before the Senate Armed Services Committee for my nomination hearing about almost exactly a year ago, I testified that I had never been confident the department was going to meet the deadline, and I couldn't change my position just because I was testifying before confirmation. So I can't change my story now. I'm skeptical that we will have done everything we need to do, but I'm going to push as hard as I possibly can to get us there.
Okay, now the long-awaited question of the ghost of Christmas past. The Joint Chiefs hack. There was apparently somebody who signed on to an email, like the equivalent of from the Nigerian prince or something. Has that person been identified who opened that foolish email, and would it help if they were identified, if they have not been identified previously?
I will say that the people that opened the email have been identified, and we have looked at the reasons why. In some cases, we did some remediation. In other cases, they had followed the right procedures up to a point, and we needed to do some more training. That has been put in place to do that. But I'd also say that was also one that was caught very quickly. We had very limited exposure. Still would like to do better. But the system, and when you look at the volume of email traffic that comes into DOD, how many we get, and the number of people that clicked, great improvement. We are certainly holding people accountable to a higher standard now. We've signed out the cyber accountability culture document that was signed by DepSec Def. Myself, Frank Kendall, and Mike Rogers have signed out the accountability procedures document to make it down to the individual and command level. So I think we've made progress in that area. I don't think identifying any more individuals, any more level would be helpful right now.
I see my time has expired, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. We now proceed to Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the panelists for being here today. I have two questions. The first one will be quite broad. The second one will be quite specific. As you are well aware, the threats to the United States have evolved dramatically in the last 10 years. State and non-state adversaries have adapted to a new digital environment quite well, and it is important that the United States invests in the time, training, and infrastructure to counter the whole spectrum of cyber threats. So as we see in the news, cyber provocation against the DoD infrastructure continues to increase. What is your assessment of the DoD's ability to counter such intrusions today? And what can I tell soldiers that I represent at Fort Drum in my district what we are doing to ensure that they are protected? And what have we learned about the enemy, and how has that changed our approach? That's the first broad question.
Again, I'll make some comments on it, but we'll take that for the record because I think it's a good question, and we owe you some better details on that. We certainly have improved training across the board in the cyber spectrum. The cybersecurity culture issue is one that's on top of the Secretary's desk. We meet every month on the cybersecurity scorecard, and a part of that gets to what is the training of the individuals. The networks themselves are much better today. They're not exactly where we want them. We've got 3 major efforts to improve that. The first one is, you're probably aware that the Secretary has directed that this year we move as much of DoD as possible, the ones that are on Windows operating systems, to a Windows 10 baseline. I cannot stress the criticality of us getting that done. Right now, when you try to look at the visibility of the networks, while we're making improvements, you're doing that across multiple operational systems, multiple baselines. It's impossible to do well. Getting to a single baseline for Windows, and that's about 80 to 85% of the DoD, will give us the ability to have better visibility. Windows 10 is the first operating system that really thought about security right from the beginning and has inbuilt features that we will take advantage of. It will also allow us to go to the next step, which is how do you then start taking and really using cloud computing technology to improve your security. So we're positioned to do that. We've got things we have to get done, and the first one is to get the Windows 10 done. The other big initiative is to complete the joint regional security stacks. In its simplest forms, what that does is lower our footprint. Today, we have about 1,000 points that you can come in. When the joint regional security stacks are done, we will have less than 100 points. That's a lot easier to defend, and we can focus more on it. It also stops us from doing our own self-denial attacks, which are also happen when you're trying to keep aligned over 1,000 different firewalls. We'll reduce the firewalls, have better overall security and visibility into the networks. That's what we're doing at the big end.
Okay, so the specific questions are actual follow-ups to your answer. When you reference the cybersecurity scorecard process, what is the scorecard exactly? Can you get into more specifics? Can this information and will this information be shared with Congress? Are there plans to expand scorecards beyond cybersecurity? And how does a negative scorecard rating of a DoD component, what is the consequence of that?
Again, we'll give you some more details in writing, but here's what I can tell you. The scorecard is looking at what we've defined right now as basic areas that we should be measuring. One of them is everybody using a secure token to access DoD systems. The advantage of that is immediate. If you're using the token, we know exactly who logged in, when they logged in, where they're at, and it is a lot harder to fake that access. So it's immediate improvement.
Can that information be shared with Congress?
Actually, I'm happy to give it to you. We've actually shared it with other committees, and I'm happy to send one over when I get back, the current scorecard.
And the results of the scorecards?
The results is right on it. It'll show you where we're at. We are not where we want to be in all of the areas. We are measuring ourselves to extremely high standards. One of the things that I just want to say up front, when you look at cyber, you could hit 80%, and a lot of people would think that would be good. In cyber, that's not good enough. So when you see that we're in yellow, and in some cases red, it's because we're trying to get above in almost every category, 95% to be green.
And the last question is, you talked about the department's plans to move to the Windows 10 operating system with a mandate to do so by a certain date. What is the cost of that transition?
I don't know the exact cost yet. We'll get that to you. But what I could tell you, the cost not to do that would be in the billions.
Great. I look forward to getting more of that in writing afterwards. I yield back.
And thank you, Congresswoman Stefanik. We now proceed to Congressman Pete Aguilar of California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Halvorsen, can you talk to me broadly about, in your testimony, you talk about cloud computing. Where will cloud computing be in 5 years and in 10 years?
In 5 years, I am hopeful that we will be in an almost complete virtual cloud environment, and cloud defined this way. We'll have private clouds, which are completely private within segments of DoD. We'll have private clouds that are just DoD, inside it. We'll have private clouds that are DoD and other parts of the federal government. And then we'll have hybrid public clouds. Because of the size of DoD and the federal government, we ought to be able to move into where we would have government hybrid clouds hosted in commercial centers, as opposed to some of the things I talked about earlier would be on-premise, that would give us the best combination of mission security and value.
Is that what you mean when you talk about page 3 of your testimony, mission partner environment, when you're talking about commercially accessible, reconfigurable, and secure data that can be shared with commanders?
A little broader than that. The mission partner environment would certainly use cloud technology, but in that part of the testimony, what I'm really talking about is how we would be able to support our COCOM commanders as they partner with both traditional and non-traditional allies to support whatever mission it is, to be able to stand up virtual networks on the fly, to be able to do that both at a secure level, at a speed level that we need, and then to keep it fiscally responsible.
Can you talk a little bit about how you envision that working and what our stakeholders and coalition partners, what their role in that would be?
Yeah, so as we can move to cloud technology, one of the things that we've got to recognize, U.S., we've got to get our MPE is going to have to be commercial-based. We're not going to be able to do this at, say, a U.S.-only based system. Other pieces of our allies couldn't afford that, and it's not what they're going to agree to do. So basing this on a commercial set of technology that also uses commercial classified technology would allow us to, in the cloud, put together a virtual network that let's say we had this is a really good example, and I think it's in the testimony, and we've done this. Let's say we had a natural disaster that had allies now like the Chinese, the Cubans, us. They're not traditional allies. We could actually stand up a network once we get some of the technologies in place that would allow data to be shared. And let's say we want to share data with China, we want to share data with Cuba, but not exactly the same data. We could do that on a network with the right protections to protect the data that we need using almost commercially available technology today. There's a few pieces that have to be done, but I no doubt they will be done by the end of this year.
Wow. Look forward to seeing that development and our discussion about that moving forward. Thank you so much. I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Congressman Aguilar. We now proceed to Congressman Brad Ashford, all the way from Nebraska.
It's a long trip every morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're able to get here. Congressman Langevin raised the issue that I'm trying to understand further, and your answers were good. I want to further understand it, though, a little bit, because we talk a lot about employee exchanges with the private sector and the need for additional authorities to do that. It seems to me it's a critical part of the plan going forward, and with the talent out there and the demands on the budget and being able to bring people in. And you, Congressman Langevin, hit it 100%, and you did as well in your answers. What do we have to do in order to? I mean, it seems to me that's something we should be able to move on. And what sort of authorities would we need in order to do that?
Again, I'd like to come back to you on the record, but here's what I would tell you. I think the first area. Today, there are some statutes that actually prohibit us from giving decision authority to those type of positions. While we certainly want to protect them and make sure that the government is in the end responsible for the decision, if I've got somebody in industry, so let's take cloud. The best cloud engineers today are not in the government. They're not. We have some really good ones, but the best ones today are in industry. We ought to be able to get some of those in. I ought to be able to assign one of them and say, okay, you're the lead cloud engineer for this year that you're doing this work with us, and give them the authority to make decisions and with some oversight expend dollars. Today, under the current authorities, that's hard to do. I need to do some work to figure out what that should look like, and I'll come back to you by the summer if that's good with some recommendations.
That's really all I have. That's extremely helpful. It seems to me that there are areas where, as you suggest, the private sector or the non-governmental sector have those expertise. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
And thank you, Congressman Ashford. And due to how important these issues are, we'll proceed with the second round. And Mr. Levine, DOD doesn't have a stellar track record in deploying business IT systems. What recommendations would you have to make to improve our abilities to deploy business systems? And secondly, how can we improve or shape the workforce to better configure, deploy, and manage these business systems?
First, we don't just not have a stellar record, we have a horrendous record of deploying business systems. I think that of all the things that we do badly, that's one of the ones we do the worst. So there are a number of things that we need to do on our side of the river to do better. One of the things that we need to do is to recognize that business systems themselves are not going to solve our problems, that what we need to look at is the processes that we are automating, so that if you try to automate an old process without looking at it and figuring out how it works, you're doomed to failure. We have tried many times to buy an off-the-shelf system and then said to the users of the system, well, you had the users of the system come in and tell us, well, that's not exactly the data we want this other data because that's what we've always used. And we start tearing apart the guts of an off-the-shelf system, and before you know it, we spent 5 times as much to re-engineer the system and to rebuild the system as the cost of the system itself. We have to control our own appetite, and that's something that we're working on within the department. In terms of what you could do to help us, one thing that I would say that you could do to help us that I hope you'll think about is, as we look at the process that we have to go through for business systems, right now, as I said, we're going to try to work with the acquisition community to re-engineer that, because we have a system where we go through an investment review process, we identify a potential solution, and it may be like a $20 million fix to a problem where you do a tinker with an existing system. We then have to throw it over the threshold, over the transom to the acquisition community that may set up a program office that in itself would cost $20 million, and they'll come to us with a solution which is, let's build a whole new system from scratch. Well, that's crazy. So we're going to try to re-engineer that within the department. There may be places where we come to you for assistance in doing that re-engineering, and there's one place in particular I'd point to, which is right now, for what I presume are historic reasons, we have one set of thresholds for what are called major defense acquisition programs. We have another set of thresholds for what are called major automated information systems programs, MDAPs and MAZES. The MAZE thresholds are way, way lower, an order of, I don't know, a couple of orders of magnitude lower than the thresholds for MDAPs, but we treat them as the same thing. What that means is that when we have an IT, a business system investment, we trigger a process on the acquisition side which is as big and as clumsy as the process we have on the acquisition side when we're buying an aircraft carrier or a fighter aircraft or something like that. And if you're buying a business system, I'm not sure that makes sense. So I think if you look at where you treat MAZE systems and MDAPs the same and whether you need to treat them in the same way in legislation, I think that's something constructive that could help us in streamlining our own internal processes.
Well, thank you for being so candid. And additionally, too, hey, technology changes overnight. And so I know it's an extraordinary challenge, but we appreciate both of you, what you're doing. Also, I'm grateful, Mr. Halvorsen, I notice your association with Rotary International, your service as a Paul Harris Fellow. I'm happy to be with you. So a question, Mr. Halvorsen, Spectrum is a vital resource for the department. However, it's also one that we're in increasing competition with the commercial sector. What challenges do you see over the next 10 years when it comes to the DoD use of Spectrum? What recommendations would you make to improve the responsiveness of the regulatory process to including national security concerns and economic priorities?
So I think today we're in a good spot. Hard work with Spectrum. We did well with the last auction, and the money is there to change where DoD can move and share Spectrum. What I worry about right now is that the private demand for Spectrum is going to exceed our ability to keep pace, and that we could, if we are not careful, put some national systems at risk. Some of this takes time, and in this business, I get that time is really valuable and it is money. But there is a physical limitation to how fast we can move the DoD systems either into the ability to share Spectrum or out of some Spectrum. And I worry, maybe because we're victims of our own success. We've done very well, and the legislation that's been written and the sharing has all worked to date. But what I hear from industry right now is, well, we want to go faster. And I don't know that we can go much faster today on how we look at spectrum, make the decisions of where we can get out and how we would share. I would also tell you that while I think industry is starting to look at making their own investments in helping us share, they're just starting that. And I think one of the things we need to look at is, I'm happy to be measured on how DOD is making investments to share. We ought to think about some measurements that we would give industry to say, how are you doing in making the investments to your contributions to helping us get to that state?
Well, thank you very much. And now, Ranking Member Jim Langevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thanks to our witnesses for being here. So yesterday I had the opportunity to sit down, have a sit down with Deputy National Security Advisor Everett Haynes and the Homeland Security Advisor Lisa Monaco to discuss the Comprehensive National Cybersecurity Initiative. And I've certainly been an advocate for many other proposals under the CNCI for some time, and specifically the appointment of an individual at the executive level to oversee federal cybersecurity enterprise. And it's one of the problems, I think, that particularly on the .gov side, they really don't have anybody in charge with both policy and budgetary authority that can reach across government and compel departments and agencies to do what they need to do in cyber. Hence, you have things like the OPM breach that happened. And I think DOD, by the way, is doing a much better job in terms of defending the .mil network and all that. As difficult and as challenging as it is, it's important. And they're doing good work. But can you describe how DOD fits into the overall CNAP, as it's called, and more specifically, how DOD will interact with the new individual, the Federal Chief Information Security Officer will be appointed to coordinate cybersecurity policies and activities?
Today, and even before the legislation, we partner extensively with the federal CIO, Tony Scott. I think Tony, when he came in, brought some new ideas to the federal side. We are certainly supportive of that and will continue to do so. As the areas that the federal government is looking at are applicable to DOD, we'll play and we'll play hard and we'll support those. We'll continue to advise Tony and the new individual that's appointed on where we think there are things that DOD is doing that should be applied to the rest of the federal government, and we will take those things that are really working and apply them within DOD. I think the establishment of an individual to do that is key to success inside the rest of the federal government, and I think there's some opportunities for us to really set that tone. One of them is, as we rebuild the NBIB and we look at the lessons learned, I know Tony and I have agreed today that we ought to take those lessons learned and apply them across the federal government in any place that we see that's applicable, and we will do that.
Okay. What progress has DOD made on cloud computing, specifically integration of capabilities provided by essential service providers, and are there enough certified to create a competitive field, and how are security concerns being addressed?
As for the progress, two things I think I would like to make point. We say a lot of times that DOD is behind in cloud. So I wanted to really know if that was true. So I've asked my staff and some outside to take a look at how does DOD compare in the use of cloud with other Fortune 50 or peer competitors. We are actually slightly ahead of most of the Fortune 50 in the use of cloud. We are now embarking on doing more, but I don't think DOD is behind. If you look particularly at the financial industry, which has some very strong security similarities to us, they have done exactly what we've done. They've taken some of their public-facing stuff and they've put it in the cloud. We've done that with good success. The next two things that we are doing, and we have now gotten certifications, enough of them to start being competitive, is to look at how we bring industry into on-premise cloud offerings. We do that right now very limitedly through the NGEN contract that the Navy put in place, where actually HP is running Navy data centers, to include Navy data centers at the secure level, on-prem for the Navy. We are using that model, and we're going to expand that across the rest of DoD. I will have a couple RFIs out here in the next month. We have a couple contracts that we're going to let that will allow 4 commercial entities to come in at the level 4 level in certification, which is right below the classified data. And we have some work being done to allow more companies to partake in the classified space too. So I actually think we're making good progress. We've got to stay on top of that. I hope this summer, if the Windows 10 things goes well, the next announcement that we will make will be that DoD has decided to go to a more complete cloud environment similar to, and I just use this as an example, this is not a decision, but similar to what a Windows 365 cloud environment would do. You have to get to that next phase to really take full advantage of the cloud across the board.
Thank you. I just, I know my time's expired, but I will say, I hope along with all of this, we are paying maximum attention to the security of the cloud. It does still concern me that, you know, we have the crown jewels and in some ways all in one place. And my colleague Jim Cooper likes to use refer to the cloud as the acronym for Chinese love our uploaded data. So security can't be tight enough as far as I'm concerned.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I take one more minute? We agree. And one of the reasons that we are where we are with cloud, it's the same reason the financial industry is where it is with cloud. We do have some things we have to make sure security is right. And one of them is, how do you achieve virtual separation so that you don't get the effect of everything being loaded in one spot and it can be exfiltrated? And if it does get penetrated, how do you quickly shut that off and isolate it? And we are spending a lot of time working with the industry experts in how to do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Langevin, and thank you for your expertise in acronyms. We now proceed to Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. My final question relates to the personnel side of this issue. So one of the challenges that I think we clearly face is ensuring that our cyber, technical, and workforce capabilities can scale economically. And a significant issue for the industry is the clearance process. Is there any thought being given to an approach for fast-tracking clearance processing for critical skills position, such as computer network operations programmers, to better enable effective support as your mission requirements expand?
We have a problem with security clearances across the Department of Defense and across the industry, and the problem with prioritizing is how many competing priorities we have. So yes, that would be a priority, but I can't look across the Department of Defense and say we don't have a dozen other priorities that are equal, that are at least equal to that. I mean, the number of priorities we have is extraordinary. The security clearance problem is a problem not only for IT professionals, but also for contractors who are working on weapon systems. It's a problem for the hiring process within the Department of Defense. That's why we're working to re-engineer our internal processes, and why we hope that we will be allowed to re-engineer help re-engineer some of the OPM processes as well as we go forward with this. One of the things that we're very hopeful for is continuous evaluation as a tool that will help speed things up and lower the burdens. But I've got to say, right now we're running continuous evaluation as a pilot program, which means we're running it in addition to all the other requirements. And we're hoping that we can prove it out so it can be a substitute for some of the requirements so it can expedite. We're not there yet. But it's a hard question, not just for this area, and I don't think the Department can afford to solve it by carving off one universe and treating them better, because the other universes of people we need to get through the security clearance process are also vital to our national security.
Mr. Halvorsen, do you have anything to add?
No, I think Peter summed that up very well.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield back.
And thank you, Congresswoman Stefanik, for your insight, too. There being no further, we are adjourned.